Hello, everyone. This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today is Darlene Van de Grift. She actually has been with me before. We did an interview, but it was an audio only. This is a little bit different, the format, but the same dance per se. So, Darlene Van de Grift is a highly respected medical intuitive and multidimensional mediator, timeline architect, medium, and a beautiful artist. Gosh, yeah, your art's so beautiful. I have to say that again here. Darlene is also the author of Earthbound, The Genesis of the Great Experiment. And the book will be released later this year. Right, Darlene?
Yes.
So the full bio will be at the end. There's a lot more to her. But the question still remains the same. The question that I love asking my guests, as you know, how would you respond to the question of who you are in your own words in this very moment?
In this very moment. When people ask me, oh, even how are you? There's so many parts of people, how do you answer that? And usually I will answer for how are you? I would say I'm good because on every level in some way there's good, right? Um, but who am I? I believe that I am a multidimensional being, as is people, as are humans, and that it's mostly about my work, I guess, of who I am in my work as a navigator of timelines and an architect to help people to navigate their own timelines and bringing forward what feels the right now. It's like more about what is the divine feminine. Like that is something that's been coming in the last few months, and it's coming in with climate clients. It's coming in many ways, um, even with men, of them looking at the fact that they don't feel like they have an identity anymore because the women have, you know, to them feel like the women have pushed them out. And it's really how we as women deal with the men.
Wow. That's another, I mean, this is a fascinating topic. And I guess I would start there. So, what is about the divine feminine? What's the calling for? What's the description of that picture, of that vision?
I don't believe, or like it doesn't come in for me in my own guidance that there is a big difference between the masculine and feminine, right? They coincide, they blend together. We've created the vision in it and assigned, oh, women only do that, men only do that. And I think in the last like 15, 20 years, there's been more trying to integrate in a way, even with gender, trying to integrate in that way. But the divine feminine, it's not, I can better answer you, it's not who we've been. So in that movement of trying to claim our space in the males, in the male world, in the patriarchal system, we became more like the men, right? So you have to be stronger, you have to be determined, you have to speak up, you have to do, there's nothing wrong with that, but it didn't get us where I think we could really be. The divine feminine has all of those qualities, but they're done in a very different way. They're done in a loving way. They're not done in a condemning way. They're not done in a way that is judgmental, or I'm better than, or you did this to me, and they blame. It comes from a very different frequency. It comes from a very different vibration, very different heart space.
Right. Gosh. That reminds me, or kind of makes me think about the soul itself that has no really gender. It's the divine itself, isn't it? It's funny. Every time I hear the description of the divine feminine, I think about the divine as a whole. If we can let it come through this human incarnation, then it would behave just like that, would express itself in a very
Yes.
loving way. But it still would act, of course. Is that something that am I trying to generalize those concepts, Darlene, or it is very much one and the same or very similar?
I think it's very similar to that. There isn't a division between either of those. And that when it reacts, there are boundaries. Like it's not like the feminine is so soft and loving and caring that it just allows everything to come in. There are boundaries, but there's a form of integrity that both of those parts of ourselves hold. And that's what it feels like to me. It's that place to aspire to. Like, how do you bring your integrity up? And a lot of times that's through vulnerability.
Right. Yes. Yes. Letting ourselves be seen. You know, I just came across this idea of acceptance being when we let's say faced with the situation. So there's the idea of responding to the situation. It feels like this is the only control that we really have. And then there's also a calling for acceptance, like letting the situation be exactly as it is without trying to change or push it away or escape that situation. But at the same time, it doesn't mean, as you said, passivity, right? Not doing anything, just
Hmm.
resting there and accepting being hurt. That's not really the case. I mean, sometimes we have no other choice. The question is kind of a little bit complicated, but I'm trying to put that into question. So how do you view this idea of choice? Do we really have a choice, free will? Do we have a little bit of free will? Let's say not a wrong understanding, but a misconception about choice.
Well, I think a lot of people don't think that we have a choice, especially these days. But we do. You know, it may be a choice to allow what's happening to happen because maybe there's growth in it. Maybe there's something that, like you need to learn or that person needs to learn. But I believe that we always have some level of choice. What we have to choose to do is to recognize that we're multidimensional. So that choice may be something that you like, the horrors that happen. How could you possibly think that a person would want to be, killed or that, attacked or raped or whatever that is? And yet, in, I don't know about all the cases, but in my understanding and in my belief in clients, that even when something horrific happens, there is a balance to that of what came out of that. Sometimes it's growth, sometimes it's a gift, sometimes it's just the fact of acceptance and allowance, and the heart opens. There's things that can happen to balance out horrific things that happen, whether it's, and on the spiritual level, sometimes there are people that volunteer for those because it makes an impact on the whole. And we may never understand that, you know, but the choice is most likely on some level, even if it doesn't feel like it's conscious.
Right. Wow. So in a way, those choices are conscious and unconscious at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's not as clear as we want it to be. The mind, the rational mind wants it to be.
Yeah. Well, we're all linear, right? We think linear, cause and effect, all of that. And in some ways that's true, but not all the time.
Right. Yeah. That really resonates with me too. Yes. So does it connect to the concept of intuition? Or the idea of intuition is that when we know we have a choice, but we in a way let it flow. It seems like we could do something differently, but we don't. Do we get that response intuitively?
Well, you have to trust your intuition, right? Your gut feeling, because our body speaks to us a lot, but a lot of times you push it aside and say, or this is what I want. I'm not going to listen that I shouldn't do that, or it's not important for me to do that, but this is what I want, right? But listening more deeply, taking that, when you have the opportunity to, you respond, not react. And in responding, you're checking with your intuition, you're checking with your heart space, you're checking with your gut feeling, you're checking with, backing back down just to give yourself a breather and taking a pause, so that when you react, you're really coming from more of who you are, more of what you're capable of, your integrity place, your accountability place. You're coming from that, and not from just something that spiels off, or yes, I'll do that, or no, I'm not going to do that, because it's coming from a woundedness, and not strength of integrity.
Right. That also resonates true to me. The way you speak of it feels like there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Is that something that becomes a practice?
Becomes I mean, you can, if you look at it as work, who's going to want to do it, really? But if you're curious, I mean, start with curiosity and knowing that you're a creator, and then it can become fun in finding out who you are, who you've been, and how to navigate life. How do you navigate life in a more wholesome way that you're getting the lessons sooner? At some point you can move past the lessons and move into more of, I've arrived, now what?
Right. Oh, I love that. I love that. I arrived, now what? So for some people, there's intuitive calling to get to know more of what we are and
Mm-hmm.
kind of connect the dots, and coming from a place of wholeness. It's very clear, like it is
Mm-hmm.
my case, your case, and so many people that I meet, amazing, beautiful people. But I wonder why some of us don't really get the calling. Do we actually all of us are called to wholeness and don't answer the call for some reason? Because it's not something that it's to be done in this lifetime, or there's something else there. There's a mystery, perhaps.
I mean, it could always be mystery. I think everybody has the potential, but they may not be aligned. If your life is so stressed out, you don't think about going inside, right? Because you're in survival mode, right? And so going inside, taking the time, taking a breather, having enough food, it's just not there for them. And it's not to be judged. It's like, how do you bring their vibration up? How do you, that maybe have moved through certain things, how do you participate more fully in the community, in the world, to bring their vibration up? Because then they will have the time, and they will have the food, and they will have the homes. And, you have to help each other. There's no way around that. You can't do it alone.
Oh, I love that. What a beautiful vision, right? For us, like Ron Dass used to say, he said that we are here to walk each other home. I think he said that way,
Hmm.
almost in a way, hold each other's hand and walk home together. Yes, and
Hmm.
is that what you meant when you mentioned about the women helping the divine feminine, helping the divine masculine, or the masculine, or the women helping men?
Yes. So how it's been identified for me is the divine feminine in its wholeness, which means putting down all the swords and the arguments and everything, and coming from a deeper place of resonance, that they are here. We are here, whoever aligns with the divine feminine. And that could be masculine too. That doesn't mean that it's the feminine. No, it's not always women, is to heal the wounded male. And what that means is, not wounded in weakness. you know they've been they've been struggling, they've been assigned a horrible time, they have to go to war. They have to do all the things that we've been assigned to not do in the past. Right now that's kind of blended together, but it's that place of, I was looking at the movie, a friend of mine that I'm doing a podcast with around the divine feminine told me about a movie called, The Return. And it's about the Helen of Troy time period of how this king who went to war comes back with so much shame, and couldn't even greet his family, couldn't come forward in any way. And I think men in general, in their incarnations, carry shame, carry guilt, carry remorse, and it's been placed on them because they had to do that. That was their title. That's what they needed to do. And the divine feminine is here to say, let's open our arms to help heal that, to help men that they can be more vulnerable, that we're not going to judge them and criticize them and call them crybabies. We're going to help them to find themselves, because then the balance happens, right?
Ah, that's beautiful. Yes, I love that. This idea that we can be healed enough, or come from that place that you speak of, this wholeness, this the integration of the masculine and feminine, so we
Hmm.
can just kind of guide others in that direction as well. What comes to mind is trauma. So that has been my case, like a lot of trauma in the past, in childhood, and always got in the way of, although I knew, for some reason I had this knowing that love was the foundation, the way to navigate this reality. And I really tried so hard, to represent that. But I was not ready. The body mind was not ready because of the trauma. So, talk to me for a moment about your work. Does it relate past lives, timelines? Do you, in evolution, Do you actually guide your clients through trauma to, in a way, heal them um, to evolve into this more integrated being?
Well, the thing about trauma on any level is it's not about forgiving what happened. It's forgiving yourself and loving yourself enough to forgive yourself, so that your heart stays open to you, because we're all in this lifetime with everything else as a reflection, is a mirror for us, right? So we have to love ourselves enough and forgive ourselves enough in order to evolve to whatever the next step is, and the next step is. And those places of where there is so much trauma that has impacted us, it will take work, right? But it's that I want to heal. I want to be more better than where I am right now. And that self-love is a place that you need to learn how to do that, really. Because it start very simple. Very simple. Do you eat well? Do you drink enough water? What is your diet? How is your sleep? All of that. Have to take care of the vessel.
Yeah, that's another piece of that puzzle that really keeps coming back to me, the eating part. So I used to be a vegetarian for a long time, and then I noticed that it was not being true to me because it was not really authentic, because I
Hmm.
kept craving, something, the body, the mind was craving meat. So, and then I would become upset about people who would be eating meat and then criticizing them for it. And that's
Yeah.
when I knew, like, oh, wait a minute, something here that's not right. So I went back to eating meat and all that. So how do you see that? I try not to focus too much on food, because that's not really, it's not really the focus. You see, I'm using the same word because it's a matter of attention. So a lot of times if I put too much attention into something that I really love, I don't need to eat. It feels like the body's already fulfilled somehow, or nourished by, like, spiritual conversations or spiritual doings, deeds, work, list. That just takes, I mean, to me, it's almost like it gives me energy, physical
Hmm.
energy. It's interesting
Hmm.
to witness. So how do you see, I'm a little bit now in this situation. I know a lot of people, they think that way. What is to be spiritual? What does it look like? You're a vegetarian, a vegan, you don't do certain things, almost like a set of rules. And that sounds very much like a religion to me, that you have
Hmm.
all these rules and dogmas.
Hmm.
So I, talk to me about that. What is
We'll talk
yeah,
about choice, right?
yeah,
It's what works for you the best. And we live in such a toxic world, and have been for quite a while, decades, that it has affected our choices with food. And then we have the obesity problem, and then we have all of that, even children. And so getting back to what works for you the healthiest, and it's not easy for some people. The addictions are rampant with sugars and coffee, and and gluten and all of that. So coming back to the balance, it's not about restriction, it's not about judgment of others, it's the balance. And you're talking about eating meat, and I had been a vegetarian as a kid because I just couldn't stomach it, and I went back to eating meat. And recently I find that only a small amount of meat, like, I have to crave it. But the thing about, if you have that connection to the soul level of saying, oh, I am eating a piece of flesh, right? And yet your body still needs it in some way, say a prayer over it, release it, do something that at least acknowledges that this was a living being, not that your fruits and vegetables weren't, but that meat, that's a different quality of the soul, so just honor it in some way. One, it helps digestion, by the way, it does.
so that's a great suggestion, Darlene. Just to yeah, I have heard that before, the prayer. I always do that. Actually, I go a little bit, I don't know if that's beyond prayer, but I surrender to everything I do in my thinking, all my actions. To, I usually don't say it that way, but I use the word consciousness. So it's
Hmm.
almost like I know that everything is consciousness. We are consciousness. There's nothing that's not. So what part of me is kind of caught up in this idea that this is bad and this is good? So that's when I see that duality setting in, the separation.
Yeah.
So, right? So coming from a place of unity, I'm not saying that I'm established there yet. Once we understand that we are not separate from anything, then it's something happens, it's almost like living in freedom, that you're not really, there's no more judgment for the thoughts that come in or for the actions. It's just, it feels like a flow, but then it gets interrupted every time I talk to somebody that comes from the spiritual community that would say, "Oh, no, 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 you're not supposed to be doing this." And then there's an interruption of the flow, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, wait a minute. Oh, you're right. Maybe I shouldn't." And then the judgment, that feeling of being separate from my divine self. So I'm wondering if do you feel that way? Like, I mean, we just entertain it, but we don't really embody it in a way. How do you dance that dance?
I function from neutrality. And that doesn't mean no action. That doesn't mean passiveness. That means that the response is, or the looking at the situation or whatever that is coming from a place of neutrality. And if there is a need of a response that's different than neutrality, it's always about speaking your truth, but it's not about judgment. It's not about condemnation. It's not about any of that can create division, right? It's like if somebody is forcing something on me that I know that I have to hold my neutral position, it's more about, well, I see it this way or this way or this way, right? Whatever that is true for me, without being fearful of the challenge that's in front of me. I mean, neutrality is very significantly valuable to people if they can establish it, because it's not running away from anything. It's just really anchored in to your presence of who you are and just grounded in that. And anything that comes in here doesn't mean a darn thing about you, but it's also accountable, right? So if somebody says something to you, you have to look at it. Is there a piece of truth in that they're saying about me, right? And if there is, acknowledge it. What you said was, yes, that's true. I did that.
Yes, yeah.
Period. Not I did that because. There's no justification. That takes you into a whole other realm, right? Excuses and justification. Yes, I did that. Period.
Yes. What's not to love about that? Yeah, just
Hmm.
true. It's truth, really, right, Darlene?
Right.
To live from a place of truth, that we are not, there's no fear, right? We just want to be truthful. Gosh, to me, within this dance of life here as a human, there's nothing more precious than that, being true. And
It feels good. It
yes,
feels great.
it does. Yeah, to just be true. And I think it goes a little bit beyond of the concept of authenticity. I don't know. I
Hmm.
just love this. And they are all concepts, right? Because
Hmm.
in the end, what we are cannot be conceptualized. It's not a thing, so it cannot be described. We are just using concepts here to navigate this reality in a beautiful way. Which I mean, to me, that's the only reason to be here, to realize what we are, and then bring that perfume right to the body, mind, and then our environment somehow.
Right. And accept everyone else's perfume.
Yes, right.
Right.
Having that scent too,
Yeah.
to sense the perfume in everything of the
Hmm.
soul of the divine. So I want to talk about your art, but before that, I mean, you're just such a beautiful artist, though. This is a intuitive, divine art, I would say, a soulful art. Do you call it that?
No, it is. I was blocked for so many years that I just painted paintings of women and black and looking outside into the world. And I was like, and then all of a sudden it started to break free. So it's my freedom pieces. Let's say that.
That reflects that for sure. I want to show that here. But before that, Dali, talk to me about the difference between past lives and timelines. I know this is a question that I think I didn't ask you for the last time we talked, and because I don't remember the answer. So a lot of people probably are asking themselves too, what is the difference between those two concepts again?
There's not much. I mean, I think it's a way that we conceptualize it. So, a past life, we're all familiar with that. It's a time that you lived in, but it's not really past, right? It's a time that you're still existing in some way. That's a really hard concept to understand, that, I'm split up into how many fragments of places that I exist at other levels, right? So a past life is that. So you tune into that, you find out what that was about, whether you were male, female, or something else. And how did that fit into this life now? And a timeline is very similar to that. Um, Except the difference that I see in a timeline can carry more weight of what the pattern or the issue is, because it's all of them. I look at it as like a string of pearls, right? So if you have one pattern, one belief system, one thing that you keep doing in the relationships over and over and over and over again, that is the string. And these lifetimes are on the string, right? So that when you heal one, like you don't have to go through 50 different lifetimes. When you heal one and you integrate it, it's like pulling the string out, and the rest of the lifetimes don't really matter. They don't hold the weight anymore. So that's the timeline.
Wow. And so, is that something that most people who you work with, they are familiar with already?
No, but I would say a fair amount believe in past lives. They may not believe it or understand the concept of timelines, and that gets explained to them. But if they're working with me and they have a very strong belief or disbelief in karma or time or incarnation, past lives, we don't go there. I mean, why bother? It doesn't make sense to them. It will not help them in this time.
It's very helpful though, because I see that sometimes we use language that it's not helpful to a lot of people. Let's say the metaphor of dream, that this is a dream reality. Like it's a relative reality. It's not, let's say, it's true, but not 100% true. It's real, but not as real as we think it is. So it's and this something that a lot of people don't understand. Like my husband, he really don't understand that, and he doesn't really like the idea. And some people don't like it. So in a way, even the word God, I noticed too. Some people they push away anything that has to do with religion or dogmas or spiritual concepts. They just kind of, no, let's talk about
Mhm.
science, more from a scientific point of view. And speaking of science, have you heard about spirit science? And that has to do with the flower of life. I think we talked before, right, Darlene, about that.
Yeah, we did.
So, is that possible to integrate them in one lifetime, like bring all these pieces together? That's fun. We talked about the flower of life pieces, bringing them together because at some point I feel like they are contradicting. They are not really fitting together because one's connected to science and it's very rational. It doesn't require a belief system, and the other side that I really like engaging with kind of requires faith in a way that you believe that plants are responding to you, although I feel them physically. So I don't
Hmm.
think that's it's beyond belief system. So yeah, I would love to understand from your perspective, bringing these pieces together. Is that something that can really happen, or they're still fragmented here?
Well, how many lifetimes have you incarnated as human? Because we that's not our only choice. So aside from that, we bring in what I know to be true is that we can heal the fragmented parts of us that relate to this lifetime, because not all of them will. And you don't need to go and figure that all out. It's because then you evolve by the end of this lifetime. If you start to gather those pieces together to make sense of them, to integrate them, to get the gifts from them, because it's not all bad stuff, right? It's to get the gifts from them, then you take the time to integrate that, then in your next choice of wherever you choose to incarnate, you're different, right? You've moved up the scale, even if there isn't a moving up the scale, but in some way your vibration has changed, your consciousness has changed, all of that has changed. But no, you can't bring them all together. There's no need to do that, to bring them all together in one lifetime. I think eventually, as we become light beings, which doesn't mean that's the end of it, that just means that's our highest point that we know that we can be on some level, right? And past that, we have no perception or conception of what that is. But that place of getting to that level, whatever that is, you can do something this lifetime about it.
Yeah. And that's what the invitation is really, that we can
Yes.
do something about. We can live better lives in the sense of being more peaceful, joyful. That sense of fulfillment, really. That's
Hmm.
probably what I've been always looking for. I mean, seeing the big picture, then from that view, it's easier to see the parts. It's for me has been much easier to do that, coming from the broader view of what this is, which we call life. And with that in mind, gosh, I have so many questions for you, not enough time. Is there a hierarchy when it comes to spirituality, spiritual beings? Because I have heard in spirit science that they are different levels, as you just mentioned, like evolution, and but everything's happening at the same time anyway. So I'm wondering, yeah, how does it
No,
work?
it's our way of how to understand it. You have a king and you have, everybody under it, and not really. They're all experiencing, they're like, it's this kind of thing. They're all experiencing different things on a certain level. And it's not about above and below. It's all the same on some level. It is. So we don't, there's not really a hierarchy, but we have to believe that there is, because it lets us believe we can advance in that hierarchy.
Ah, yeah. So that's more a mind. I don't want to call it game, but that's a mind kind of
It's how we
construct.
construct life.
Yeah, yeah.
It makes sense in this body to do that.
Yes, yeah. It might make it more. It might be more fun, right? To have
Yeah.
a reference and believe that we are getting somewhere, like a destination. So I want to show some of your. So here it is. And I want to show this one first because, as I mentioned before, this image really caught my attention. I was looking on your website, and then this one specifically kind of made me pause for a while. And then I didn't know exactly why. We talked before and you explained it to me, but I would love for people who watch this video to also have a deeper understanding of what this image signifies.
Well, the woman is in deep meditation, right? And the owl is the owl of wisdom and delivering this orb, this pendant of opening her heart. But the interesting thing about this, that picture at the bottom, that face that looks like that, I didn't create that. Like, that showed up as I was doing the background, and it wasn't until like a couple of days later I was like, wait a minute, that looks like a face. And then it dawned on me, it's the masculine and feminine in some way in their relationship together, with a woman holding the, or has the potential to hold the wisdom, right? Because these paintings kind of create themselves. I get, oh, this needs to be here, and oh, this needs to be here. And sometimes, like, I was practicing doing the pour. It's called that. You take, you put things on the background and whatever, and things that start to show up were amazing to me. So that's one of the one of the techniques that was in this painting.
Right. That's incredible how whatever needs to be revealed, it will be revealed. It's pretty much already there. Just we need to make it visible to the naked, to the eyes, the human eyes. But do you meditate before, Darlene? Is that a sort of a kind of a trance meditational?
No, it comes in. Usually, the inspiration will come in the middle of the night. Oh, got to do that, right? And then sometimes these take just a day to do. They're not overworked. Or I'll put it aside because I can't. That's it. Like, that's it. And then I look at it while I'm working. Like, if I'm working with a client, I'll look at it and go, I see that. And then when I'm done, I go over and work it. But yeah, that's how my process happens.
That's incredible. So this is I mean using words, it feels again very intuitive. So it's just letting whatever it is to be revealed, kind of direct in any way to go either way. That's incredible though. Is that something that you learned this did you teach this technique to yourself, or this is something that was learned?
I decided to become an artist at age 12, and my mother was very supportive. And I took art lessons for probably about 4 months before the teacher was like, let her do what she needs to do. And so I would paint 12, 14, 16 hours a day. I would finish, and I loved huge paintings. One of my first paintings was 4 feet by 32 feet. It was around a pool. I would walk every day. It was 5 miles away at some person's house, and I painted the whole scenery and everything. And it just brought me out. And then there was a period of time, like I told in the beginning, that everything went dark. But as I started to come forward, then the painting started to come forward again.
What happened in that period that you call it dark? Why did you stop painting?
My mother left my father, so it wasn't the atmosphere. We lived with a family with 5 kids, and in their garage. And then she got ill. That was the time that she was really supposed to die when I was 16, and she didn't. And so there was so much confinement and wonder of what was going to happen to me. Like, how was I going to get through even high school? And then what? Then what was I going to do? I think it was all around that time. It wasn't, I went back and forth a couple little spurts when I was like 18 or 19 that I did paintings and then shut down again, because I was still trying to find myself, and then back up again in my 30s and 40s.
That's also tells us that what needs to be expressed here through a body mind, it will come forth no matter what. It might be for a period, right? Hidden, but it comes back.
Yeah, you have to trust it. You have to trust the process of the ebb and flow of life. We're not all supposed to be up all the time.
Yeah, that's true, Darlene. That's a beautiful message, right? Beautiful message. So I want to show, before we end the conversation, I want to show other paintings. Oh, I love the ocean.
Oh, that's Kuan Yin.
Yeah, is that a Chinese deity?
Deity, yeah. She's one for health, well-being. I think she does some other things, but she's she's a piece of the divine feminine, right? And so that emerging from the waves and the rocky water of our emotions, right? So how to bring that forward in all of us.
Yeah, there's for some reason water relates to emotions. And of course I had that understanding, but I also had the understanding that water also meant impermanence.
Well, that's life, isn't it?
Gosh, there's so many amazing, beautiful ones. There's one too. I'll probably end here
Sure.
but because of the time. But this one's another one that caught my attention.
Yeah. That was the prayer to the future self, to the divine self, to the one that is awake. And I'm always told or drawn to orbs and circles. In most of my paintings, there is some circle in there in some way. And this one came through, not with that circle there at all. I had no idea. Actually, it was going to be a moon, and then the face started to show up. But it was more about the colors. This one drew me in with the colors of the oranges and the richness of her skin.
Wow, that's another one that really, the moon, there's something about the moon. Yeah. So there are others on nature too. So they all have this profound, deep meaning that a lot of times it just becomes a feeling. And in a way, something, I trust that something here knows what the message is and it has received it. So I don't, intellectually, I don't have to know everything. But it's a lot of fun kind of knowing the inspiration, like for you, what the inspiration was. And then it's interesting to see the connection. Yeah.
The interesting thing about my art is that I was told I was colorblind. Both my boys are and my grandson. And it's usually a recessive gene in females, and it's more active in males. So I don't know if I see the same colors as you do, but I like my colors.
I love your colors. I love your colors too. I love your art. I love everything about you. It's truly, truly beautiful. Thank you so much, Darlene.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And I want to mention your website, so soulunion.com. So that's the website, will be clickable on the podcast notes. I also want to mention that you offer personal one-on-one phone sessions, cosmic traveler creators. That's a session 2. You have a podcast that you co-host with Melissa Waterman. And you also have a community. So anyone who are interested in can join your community, find your full potential. That's something else. Did I miss anything, Darlene, about your
No,
story?
I think if they just Google my name, they'll find
Yeah,
everything
that'll be
under
easy.
it. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much again for your beautiful presence again, for meeting me here. And we'll talk soon. Gosh, and I can't wait to talk to you soon. Very, very soon about
Thank
something
you.
else. Okay. Bye for now, Darlene. Thank
Bye bye.
you. Bye.